Hello there, Hollows, and welcome to what is essentially going to be my final thoughts on Armored Core 6. Now, please excuse my voice if it's a bit different to normal. There's high pollen counts and seems to be a bit, voice is a bit raspy today. It's a bit strange. Anyway, so I'm going to be covering all of the different things that I like about Armored Core 6, as well as the things that I don't like as much about Armored Core 6, and this should basically be my final thoughts on Armored Core 6. This is a video I'm going to tell people to go back to if they want to know my thoughts on Armored Core 6. I have played through the game twice now, once regularly and once on New Game Plus, and I've also started off playing it again as well to complete fresh playthrough. I'm about a third of the way through the game on there, so I'm pretty experienced on Armored Core 6 now. I really like the game, just to preface the video with that. I really do like the game, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. So first of all, I really like the emphasis this game has placed on boss fights. Now, I know this is something that was a bit divisive from what I've seen. There's quite a few people that felt like this emphasis on boss fights and them being very challenging almost took away, from previous Armored Core games where apparently that wasn't a factor. Although I've also heard that previous Armored Core games were very challenging, so I'm just going on hearsay in that regard. However, I really do like the emphasis on boss fights, and I think the boss fights are really creative. They're very different. There's some amazing boss designs which have really utilized the futuristic style in an incredibly amazing way, while still feeling in a strange way like Souls bosses, which I really like. And I really like that, honestly, overall. I think sometimes the game just sort of go towards slight bullet hell territory. In terms of, you got a million projectiles and it's like, how the hell am I supposed to dodge all of this? And I've seen someone on YouTube complete Baltius without taking a single hit. That's just insane to me, because I don't know how on earth anyone could realistically do that. I mean, I found myself, I was always taking damage in some regard, even if I was dodging attacks, so I don't quite understand, because this game doesn't have iframes from what I understand. But this game is different. It's not Souls, so I'm not going to criticize it for that. Something else, I really like the movement and the feel overall of this game. This is something that I really did not think I was going to like immediately. When I just saw footage of the game, I was like, no, I've never personally liked mech-based games or tank combat games. I hated World of Tanks when I tried to play that once, because I was like, Jesus Christ, control on this thing feels terrible. But Armored Core 6 manages to somehow make it feel like you're controlling this heavy mech vehicle whilst also having incredibly responsive controls. I don't know what deal with Satan they had to make to make that a thing, but it's true. The game feels and controls incredibly well, and that's one of the main things I really like. Weirdly, moving the character still feels intuitive. You always feel like you have control over your character no matter what you're doing. There's only a couple of times where I've been a bit like, I can't move properly, I can't do what I want to do. But that was just because of me, probably. Nothing to do with the game. So I also really like the game's way of almost handling a stamina management system. This is something I mentioned in a previous video, but I always really value the stamina management system in the Souls games, and I feel like it's one of the biggest balancing factors of that combat that makes it feel incredibly rewarding. And Armored Core 6, in my opinion, managed to achieve a similar thing through the use of cooldowns. You have 4 different weapons, and you also have your boost, and all of these things have cooldowns, and they all have things that you need to micromanage to be successful in the combat of Armored Core 6. And I think all of these different cooldowns all coming together creates essentially a stamina management system which is similar to what we see in the Souls games. It is obviously different, it is fundamentally different, but to me personally, when I'm playing the game, I get that same kind of rewarding feeling of, I need to take my time, I need to balance out what I'm doing, I can't be too balls to the wall crazy because I need to watch out for these cooldowns, and I can't do exactly what I want to do. I can't go crazy dodging and everything because I need to be careful and watching the dash cooldown or the boost cooldown that you've got. I like all of this, and in my opinion, this is something that I feel was lacking in Sekiro. I didn't like the lack of that kind of micromanagement element was not present in Sekiro, and I personally much prefer the system we've got in Armored Core 6, and I think it makes for a much more rewarding combat experience while still being separate entirely from Dark Souls. I also really like the customization that is present in this game. I think it's absolutely awesome. You've got way more customization than you've ever had in any previous FromSoftware title. You can do pretty much anything you want with your mech, and that is absolutely awesome. I love that. I love that it's still a mech, but I can basically make it look like anything if I really wanted to. I could draw whatever I wanted on it, and that's awesome to me. I love the ability to completely customize a mech to do whatever I want and look however I want, and there's some amazing things people have made online, and that's absolutely awesome. And it's not something I ever thought I would see in a FromSoftware game, but alas, it's here, and it's absolutely awesome. Multiplayer as well is something that I actually, and I haven't really dabbled into it too much, but I like its presence and existence. I've never been one for multiplayer in games really that much, except for Call of Duty for a very brief period, but even then, you know, I was good at it, but I wouldn't say I got completely lost in it. Dead by Daylight, actually, that's one thing. But anyway, I really like the multiplayer here. I like I've only ever done, I think 1v1s is what I personally like the most, because that feels fair and it feels like a duel, and I like that the most. I really like the arena as well, so this sort of goes into the multiplayer thing, because I really like 1v1 combat in this game. I think is absolutely awesome. You build your own mech and you battle against someone else's mech, and that feels absolutely awesome. Because in a way, to me, when you're battling someone else, it feels like a boss fight, because you have to try and predict their attacks. You know that every one of their attacks and guns is going to have a cooldown, so you can sort of manage the timings of all that to know what they're going to do, predict what they're going to do, and try and beat your opponent in that way. It feels like a boss fight, but you're playing against someone else, and that's absolutely awesome. And that goes for the multiplayer and the arena. I think both of them are absolutely awesome, and I think they're fantastic additions to the game. Just add and further the replayability of this game. That's my next point. Armored Core 6 has a massive amount of replayability that I did not think would be present when I first saw the game's trailers. There's so many different builds and different playstyles that you can accomplish in this game by customizing your mech. You can try out different builds, different leg attachments, which completely change and overhaul the whole way you're going to approach the combat in this game, and it completely changes everything. Every way of how you're going to approach every single scenario, even just the regular missions, you can approach them completely differently depending on how you build your mech, and this is absolutely awesome. You've essentially got the complete customization and freedom that you had in a Dark Souls game, where you could choose a Pyromancer, a Sorcerer, a Warrior, a Knight, Strength, Dex, whatever, except you've got that on the fly with your mechs. You can completely customize and change your build on a whim in Armored Core 6. If you're struggling with a boss fight, you can sell all your parts up, buy completely new ones, and completely change your mech to be whatever you want to try and overcome that boss fight. And I love that, because that is something that is also making the game more accessible to other people. Now, one thing that I didn't like when I played Dark Souls for the first time, I did, but I didn't like it, is it took me over a week to beat Ornstein and Smough in the original Dark Souls, because it took me that long to properly master the game's combat, and I essentially had to sort of brute force my way through that fight just by leveling up and trying to summon people and that kind of stuff. But in Armored Core 6, you don't have to do that. You don't have to just spend a week constantly having to memorize every single aspect of a boss. And yes, don't get me wrong, that is the main way in which I like approaching the boss fights in this game. I like memorizing the boss's attacks and outmaneuvering them to be able to beat them. So I learn them and master the fight so that I can get through it. However, what I'm trying to say is that for other people who perhaps are not as skilled at Armored Core, they don't want to have to do that. You can still quit the mission, go to the parts store, sell all your parts, and build a mech that is designed specifically to smash through that boss, capitalize on all of its weaknesses, and just absolutely blitz through that boss by use of, by combining and building a mech that is specifically designed to do that. And I really like that you always have that option. There is always an option available to you to just keep experimenting with your mech, and eventually you'll find something which will be able to get you through that boss fight, no matter what, because you can change your build on the fly, like I said, and I really love that. Now again, continuing what I was talking about with replayability, you've also got New Game Plus and Decisions in this game. I really like that. New Game Plus has different missions and different approaches to missions, which I really like, and it changes things just enough to feel fresh. And decisions is also something which is a part of that, because in Armored Core 6 you have different missions. So if you want to complete one mission first, then that has a potential consequence if you don't complete a different mission. So there'll be 2 missions. The only issue I have with this game is that it didn't make it completely clear to me which mission was a decision mission. So I went and completed this one mission, and I ended up losing out on a boss fight when I first go through this game, which is the Cataract boss fight, I think it is. I did not manage to fight that on my first playthrough of the game because I chose to do it different. I was just completing missions in order. I was just completing them in the order in which they were on the screen. So I missed through. I missed through. That doesn't make sense. I missed a boss fight because of that. But this is also good for replayability, because it means that you want to go back through the game again and choose the different mission this time, so you can experience something different than you did on the first go through. And I like that. Again, it's adding replayability to the game. The only thing I don't like, though, is boss fights. I think you should be able to battle every single boss on a playthrough of Armored Core 6. And you can do if you select the right decisions. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think that you should always be able to... I think it'd be good if maybe once you've beaten the game, it allows you to go back and complete the missions that you didn't, the choices that you didn't choose on your first go through. But that's what New Game Plus is for anyway, isn't it? So I also really like the world in Armored Core 6, and that's not something that I thought, again, because I was looking at it thinking, oh, sci-fi world, mechs, all this kind of stuff, that doesn't appeal to me. But the world, it has the same bleak style that I really like and appreciate in all of the Souls games and Bloodborne, and I really like that. It's this bleak world, no one is really good, everyone has an ulterior motive, and it feels very hostile, which I've always liked in the Dark Souls games. It's the thing I like. One of the things I like the most about them is an amazing world. Armored Core 6, it's not as good as the Dark Souls world, because I don't think anything will beat that for me. But I really like it, and I think it is an absolutely... It is crazy to me that they've managed to make things so different from Dark Souls, but it still has all the things that I really like about Souls in the game, in a strange way. Except for the level design. That's the only thing that I think Armored Core 6 is lacking, but I don't think it needs it, to be honest. It is a different game. It manages to stand on its own 2 feet, and I think it is an absolutely fantastic experience, and I really hope that we do get some DLC for this game, because I think this game, one of the only shortcomings of this game, in my opinion, is that I think it's quite short. I know people are probably thinking, what, this game is real, but to me, I think Armored Core 6 is quite a short game for FromSoftware standards. You know, like, the amount of content that's in Elden Ring, the amount of content that's in Dark Souls 1, 2, probably not 3. 3 is quite short, so is Bloodborne, it's quite short as well. But 1, 2, and Elden Ring, they're very long games. And I think the amount of this game has got a good amount of replayability for its length, but I do still feel like after you've beaten this game maybe 2 or 3 times, you've probably done everything there is to do, and you've experimented. Because you can experiment with builds on the fly, you don't need to go back and play through Armored Core with a different build, because you can just change it up whenever you want to. So if I beat a mission, I think, oh, I'm going to do the next mission as a tank build, then I can do that. Or I'm going to do the next mission as a lightweight build, I can do that. And because you can change it up on the fly, I think it does take away from that replayability a little bit, where after, if I beat the game as a lightweight build, I might then want to go and beat through the entire game as a tank. And you can still do that, but I don't think it's sort of, because you can change on the fly, it's not as big a thing. So I really would like DLC for this game. I think that would go a massive way in increasing the replayability, add even more parts, and there is so much potential for the Armored Core franchise, I think, now, that I absolutely like. Because this game it was overseen by Hidetaka Miyazaki, but it was directed by somebody else in the end. They were the final director on the game, even though Hidetaka Miyazaki did have a heavy hand at the beginning. I think it would be absolutely awesome if this other director that did Armored Core 6, he continues the Armored Core series. And he can keep going, make a new game every couple of years maybe, and I would love to have this series run alongside the other FromSoftware entries, because if the next game in the Armored Core franchise continues on all of this that we've got here, I am definitely a massive fan of Armored Core, I would say. I am interested in potentially going back to the older Armored Core games. Please let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in seeing on this channel. Me going back maybe to play some of the older ones and see what I think. I would probably go back in chronological order, so do, what is it, Armored Core 5 Verdict Day, I think? That's the previous one. Maybe try and do that one and just see, or Armored Core 5, I'm not sure, we'll see. Because I would like to see how much of Armored Core 6 has been taken from the Souls games. Not taken from, but you know, like the boss fights and things. And how much is still Armored Core. So how much of this was still present in previous Armored Core games. And if the previous ones would still appeal to me. So, anyway, that's my final thoughts on Armored Core 6. I think the game's absolutely fantastic. There's only a couple of negatives, really. And even then, I don't think they're really game changers. They're just, you know, or deal breakers. That's the word I was looking for. Armored Core 6 is a fantastic game. It is one of my favourite games of all time. I'd say it's probably in my top 15, maybe top 20. It's a fantastic game and I absolutely love it to bits. And I'm going to be playing this game for a while. And I'm considering doing a playthrough of it on the channel. Maybe just in 2 or 3 parts, maybe. But I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. Let me know again down in the comments what you want to see. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Maybe share this video if it was good enough. Thank you again for watching. This is Soul signing out. Have a good one.